And do you want to make your screen the main screen? Because mine's always blurry.
Uh, sure. I'll fix it here in a little bit. All right, we're back on, ladies and gentlemen. Hopefully you weren't away too long. Back on. Yeah, wait, go. All right. So what screen do you want me to make yours? Dylan's blank screen for a second. What
Yep.
screen? How do you want yours, sir? Sorry, y'all
All right,
get to
let's just
watch
do
my
one. Let's
niner
just do
score
one
right
big
now.
screen.
One big screen?
Yeah.
Oh,
I think it's just better for
where are
the
my
it's just
Niners
one
at?
article at a time.
One article? Get stocks up on the side while we get the article flowing.
I mean, you can do two. It's fine.
Okay.
Just make yours the main one because my shit's always blurry. It's a bad experience for everybody here in the chat.
Is it? All right.
Do you not think it is?
Rate it. I don't know. Folks want to
A
rate it
blurry
1 to
screen?
10? 1 to 10? Should Dylan keep his screen on? Vote yes or no.
I can keep my screen on. I just don't know if you want a blurry screen.
In the meantime, go Niners go.
What's the first topic?
Oh, they took out Trey Lance. Sorry, I'm peeking at NFL stuff. All right. Well, I'll bring up Bitcoin for a second while I'm fixing the screen. But I don't know if you got anything on Bitcoin you want to bring up in the meantime. I'm gonna pop
No,
up
I mean it's going berserkers right now.
it's going berserkers, ladies and gentlemen. You heard it here
You
first.
heard it here. Exclusive.
It's going
Only
berserkers.
exclusive content here. Only give
Let's
you the
see.
most deep and detailed insights.
Mm,
Berserkers. That's that's the
that's
analysis.
the technical term. All right.
Is my yeah, see my screen's not coming up. That's what I'm saying, bro. You need to make yours the main screen. It doesn't work.
Your stream's paused. Like what?
Like I shared my screen, it's just not working.
It's fine. It's going. It's going. All right. Let's pull up the first. I'll pull up one of yours for a quick sec, so then I could get this situated. What are we thinking? Actually, on the random news, since I had the 49ers up, I don't know if you saw it, but NFL Network, it was the Browns and the Jacksonville Jaguars game. They had,
What
you know,
happened?
when it has the marker on the field says first and 10, you know, the
Hmm.
CGI thing. I noticed that they put Publix right next to it, the supermarket. So they're
Oh,
doing,
interesting.
yeah, I was going to take a screenshot of it
Like
and
ads.
yeah, like they're
Smart.
incorporating it on the field now. So it's like first and
Super
10,
smart.
and then they have like a little, like the logo next to it, and
It's
it's
so
visible enough
smart.
that you can read it.
I
I was
mean,
like,
you ever
oh,
watch soccer
interesting.
games?
Yeah,
Soccer
exactly. I
games
mean,
have
jerseys.
advertisements across the entire field.
Yeah, exactly. On the
It's
jerseys
so
and
smart.
everything.
It's so
So I
much
was like, oh,
money.
that's pretty interesting. And so I was trying to look it up to see what the deal was or how it functions. I couldn't find anything on it. So if anybody has information, I would greatly appreciate it. I'm very curious to see, but it totally caught me off guard. I'm thinking public, and then I double look. I was like, what the hell is this? Are they doing on field? Yeah. Anyway, pretty interesting, pretty cool at the same time. I thought it was a good way that they can get advertising going. But
But thanks for coming by, everybody. We're starting the real talk, Talk Game Real Talk live podcast time. If you're here, please engage with us. Engage with us in the chat. Watching us on YouTube later, please write your thoughts in the comments. We really want to hear what you guys think.
yes,
But yeah, we got some fun topics this week that we're gonna cover. Do you want to start with the Joanna? We
Joanna.
can start with the Joanna.
Yeah, let's start with that one. I got one article up. I'm gonna get the other screen up here in a second, but definitely let's jump into it.
Yeah, so I wanted to talk about marijuana generally speaking in terms of, maybe this is something we want to start looking at in terms of trying to find some high value pot stocks. And
Screen just
there's a
going.
couple reasons why. Let me know when you got the screen switched over.
Yeah, sorry, I don't know what you're doing.
Um,
Yep.
but because my screen is still not working.
Good, you good. All right, which article do you want up, guys? Which one are you thinking? The states that are legalizing? Uh-oh, you went mute on me. Are you muted? Your mic muted? Time out, time out. Can't hear you, bro. Ghost, can't hear you. Let's get technical. A little technical difficulty here. We lost him because he got high. All right.
Can you guys hear me now?
Hey, there he is.
Jesus Christ. I was just like on a fucking speech for everybody.
Yeah, you did. We saw you. We didn't hear you. That was the
Jesus.
problem. All right, marijuana.
I'm going to officially start. Gosh, not again. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm going to start the whole thing over because I want to get a good cut from my YouTube video. I'm going to cut up later so you guys can watch this back. But welcome to the, marijuana legalization. But welcome to Real Talk. This is our Saturday night stream where we talk about the stock market, where we talk about what's happening in the economy and kind of what that means for our investments and what we're looking at moving forward for the rest of the year and maybe even next year. So if you're in the chat, please, we want to know what you guys think, what you're looking at, what your thoughts are on the topics. And if you're watching this on YouTube later, please put your thoughts in the comments because we want to know what you think about these topics. But first, I just want to start out with the first topic on marijuana. So I think there's some big moves that are happening both at the federal level and also the state level. And so if you scroll down that list, Nate, we have a lot of states that are going to have the that are going to have their on their 22 ballot for the recreational use of marijuana, which is a pretty big deal. We have 26 states so far, which are mostly on the West Coast and some on the East Coast and then spattered. But I think what we're seeing is we're seeing a big push for like the South, the Midwest, which is I think a really big move for recreational use, because obviously those can sometimes be considered the more conservative states. But if we start to see more of these states adopt recreational marijuana, I think it's going to have a really important and substantial impact in the long term, for these marijuana stocks. And I'll bring up a couple in a second that I'm looking at. But just to go through this list, if we go down: Arkansas, adult use; Idaho, recreational use; Maryland, Mississippi, Missouri, Nebraska. Like, think about where these states are in the U.S. map. Like, this is a pretty big deal. Ohio, which is that would be a really big deal, just based on its political, how important that state is politically. Wyoming, there's a lot of stuff happening. So this is something I'm going to be looking at moving into 2022 as we see those on the ballots. As we get more data coming through about how many people in the preliminary kind of results that they typically take, how many people are for this, and then that could have a big indicator on which states and how many states could be added to the list for recreational usage. So that's one aspect I'm looking. The second one, perfect timing, is at the federal level. So this is pretty important. So at the Senate, they're trying to put a bill together. It's basically like the decriminalization of it more. And let me think of the name. It's a Schedule 1. Mm-hmm. So cannabis is right now a Schedule 1 drug, which basically if you have possession, then you're punished with jail and fines. And so this is something they're trying to put on the ballots, or pass through the Senate. I think it's coming into 22 as well, about decriminalizing it. And so that's really important, because if you scroll down some, let me see where I can find that part. I think it's, what are the new draft legislators doing? So they failed last year removing penalties for marijuana. But there's a part that in this article that talks about how is it even Schedule 1 still, really? Some people might agree with you there, some people might disagree, but I think the main thing that they put here that they say which would be the biggest positive is that it's going to help it's going to make it easier for businesses to create and to get set up business structures to sell pot, basically. So I think that can lead to like an increase of overall adoption. I think that's the part. Marijuana producers and retailers. And so it said we'll solve banking, taxation, transportation problems, and cannabis reform advocates. So I think this could be a really big deal in terms of, again, if we get more federal regulation on it, that can really help adoption and growth of that sector and industry. And so these are a couple things I'm really looking at. Nate, I wonder if you have any thoughts on this, any feedback, or what do you think? Do you think these are important steps?
Absolutely. I mean, strictly from a monetary standpoint, the state of California came out with Prop 64. That's a state bill, and I think the federal government's kind of following suit. But I just pulled it up. California looks like $185 billion in capital gains, the most ever, resulting in $18.5 billion in tax revenue for the state. So if we're just looking at it from a fiscal standpoint, states need money. You could bet your arse that the federal government, Biden, how's he going to start paying for some of his stuff? I think that the Biden administration would be very smart to be looking at this, not only from a political standpoint or progressive agenda, but also he's looking to invest how much money into infrastructure and all this, social services and everything else that he's trying to pull off. So many states are going to be, they've been at the vanguards of this for years, and now the federal government, typically the laggard, is going to finally start looking at adopting something like this. I think it'll be a net gain at the end of the day, and to the point of legalizing it, I think that's a very important opportunity for folks, specifically those who have been biasedly, substance one is a strong abuse, if you will, in terms of the system. But I think if we're talking about reform and being able to give opportunities back to folks who were reprimanded unjustifiably so and disproportionately so, I think this is going to amend some of those wrongs, if you will. A little too late, maybe, but for me, I think it's a win-win if you're looking at it from both a monetary but also social standpoint. I don't see why not. But anybody else have any thoughts on this? I know there's a couple stocks that we're looking at. Maybe talk about them a little later. But
I'm back. I'm sorry, I'm having so many audio issues,
gotcha.
but
You good? Did you
but
want me to
yeah,
pull up the stocks?
yeah. If you want to pull up the first one, which is GRWG, so this stock is interesting. This is something that I've heard about quite a while ago. I've just kind of been watching some of the pot stocks and weed stocks more from a distance because I felt like they got a little overhyped and a lot of that momentum was still kind of falling into these companies. But this one's interesting because they've dipped pretty substantially over, since February when we saw a big peak in a lot of names. But when I'm looking at valuation and growth, this is one of the companies that I think is really interesting right now because they just came out with earnings. And so they saw a 200% growth year over year in earnings, and their net income positive. So, if they say they keep up, they've raised their guidelines to about, they're saying they might hit a 500,000 or 500,000,000 in revenue this year and be net income positive. And right now they have a market cap of 1.8 billion. So when I'm looking at this company, I'm like, okay, their valuation's decent. It's not that bad. A stock that we've talked a lot about on here is Tillery, TLRY, and Tillery has lower revenue and their market cap is 4 times as large. And so I'm trying to look for names that I could see have a potential that are maybe a little bit more undervalued. They still might be a little hyped up more than they should right now, but the valuation's not super crazy. And so this one's I'm kind of eyeing right now. And kind of when I break down the charts, on just some price points I'm looking for, the stock's at a pretty important support line right now, which is around the $30 price point, 31. And so I'm really looking for it to hold that $30 price point. If it kind of starts bottoming there, that's a pretty bullish sign for this stock. It's still showing a lot of negative momentum, technically speaking. But if it can hold this kind of 28 to 30 range, it could start bottoming out here and it could be a price point to start consider buying at with a really tight stop loss. So that's one weed stock I'm specifically looking at moving forward. As kind of we just talked about, it seems like there's a lot of opportunity as more states are more federal regulation in the positive sense and more states adding it to the ballot for next year, trying to get it approved for recreational use. And the second stock that I've talked about quite a bit, both on my YouTube channel as well as in the Discord, is Maps. So I think I like Maps because it's a different take on it's a different my bad everybody, my video's off. It's a different take on playing this kind of industry. So, when I'm thinking about assuming that more states might have regulation pass, using recreational or approving recreational use, more federal things. Weed Maps is a way to play the overall industry, because what Weed Maps is, if you never heard about them, they're basically a marketplace where companies can list their what's the name for the shops? I'm forgetting the term. What's it called, Nate?
Dispensaries?
Dispensary, there you go. But dispensaries can list, and yeah, they can list their company on there. People can search through all the inventory in their local shop, their local dispensaries, and they can get it delivered or they can pick it up And so this is a way to play the overall industry. Grow is to specifically GRW, whatever it is, grow generation. They're a way to play a specific company that's succeeding. Weed Maps is to play the entire industry, and that's why I like them. Um, when we look at their, I think you had it up on the side screen right there.
Mm-hmm.
When we look at their how they're doing in terms of annual earnings, so they are seeing a growth this year. It's not crazy year over year growth, but more positively is they're seeing their net income increase substantially. And so what we're seeing is they're making decisions that aren't really increasing costs, but they're able to increase their bottom line, which is a really important, I would say, step in any growth company, which I like quite a bit. They just came out with earnings. They beat earnings. They adjusted their EBITDA. For the year. They're still on track. So this is a company that I'm looking at as well, and a different way to play this kind of industry. And their price is currently at around 13 bucks. It's really important for the stock to hold around 12.80 if we talk technically for just a second. And so that's kind of what I'll be looking at. Um, and if they can't, then I might be adding in the like $10 to $11 range because I don't think they're terribly priced. A lot of people don't know about them. They're not as hyped out on the
Mm-hmm.
markets, but I think they have a lot of potential. They're kind of the number one kind of platform for people wanting to buy pot at their local dispensaries. So those are two plays that I'm looking at specifically in this industry.
I agree.
So I
I
think
agree.
you should keep an eye on them.
Yeah, I think they're sleeper stocks, specifically maps. I know in Sacramento, the capital of California, they're pushing heavily right now for a lot of reform, or they were in the past, maybe not as much right now, but I'd see their names on billboards all over the place. So once they start getting more comfortable with state legislation and then federal, I could see this thing pop in.
Yeah.
I mean, it'll take off because then they could do mass marketing, across all
Yep.
states, and by economies of scale, it just drops dramatically the price of doing business, if you will. So I think that's a huge one. And then the hydroponics sector, man, like
Yeah.
that's a
Yeah, they do
huge one
hydroponic. Yep.
on the other stock we were talking about. So I think
Yep.
there's a
Grow
lot of
generation.
opportunity. Yeah, exactly. I mean, I don't know if I would. Let's see. I'm just curious. Year to date, 3 years out. Yeah, I mean they were what, $3, $5, and then they just popped here like
Yeah.
uh, about last year.
Yeah.
That kind of makes sense. I mean, people are starting to do home grows, and from a commercial standpoint, it's more feasible that way. So, very interesting stocks. I don't know. Anybody else looking at these in particular,
Any
or
other names
looking?
out there?
Yeah, I'm very curious to see if anybody else has any thoughts on that. But definitely, I think those are two on my watch list as well. In fact, I have some maps that I bought. I think we did. You end up buying some a while back? Can't remember if we both went in on them at the same
I
time.
bought
But
it at 14 bucks a little while ago, and then I ended up selling it because I just saw some weakness and I was waiting to see if it
mm,
came back a little bit. So I
got it,
sold my position, but I'm waiting for a time to buy back in
got it,
because I do believe in it long term, just waiting for the right price.
got it, got it. So that's what we got for weed. Anybody else feeling high on that? On those numbers there? I don't know.
That's what we need as well as a sound
Didn't-
effect.
Yeah,
There you go.
I'll get one. I'll get one of those. We're adding up our sound effects here. Maybe we'll go to China. 99 problems, and China is one. And we'll go there for a quick minute, and then we'll bring it home to the U.S. Circle back. We'll talk some CPI stuff. There's some employment numbers, some big earnings coming out next week in the retail sector. So hang on tight. We'll talk about that in a minute here. But first, let's go to China, man. Let's see how things are. I'd say doing, maybe not doing. In China is the right word.
Yeah.
Restrictions. You want to break us off, and then we'll dive into it.
Yeah, I could dive into it. Definitely. I think the main thing that just happened, we've been talking about it for a while, is just seeing a lot of issues in supply chains. And so this last week, China, let me find the same article as you. China came out and said that they shut down a section of the world's
Third largest.
third largest port, which is a pretty big deal. And so we've kind of been talking about this like supply chain issues. We'll talk about CPI and employment in a second, but as well as PPI numbers. So PPI numbers again increased. It was the largest number since 1980 and the largest month over month increase since I think 1990. And so we're continuing to see the so CPI is consumer price index, PPI is production price index. So that's more the back end, like how are the supply chain doing? And so we're continuing to see those costs go up. And this is from last month, but we're still seeing a lot of port issues. And so being the third largest port is a pretty big deal. And I think even more, I would say even a bigger concern with this is that
Oh, audio went out again. No. I guess that also brings too soon. But as we're talking about China, third largest port shut down due to COVID. It's going to have massive, massive ramifications, specifically on our prices. We've talked about this, talked about it a couple weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, and then it's only come up recently. In fact, a phenomenal person, economist, important person that a lot of people pay attention to. We have Mohammed El-Iran, who brought this up in Bloomberg and a couple other areas, saying, one of the three big cost push drivers of inflation is this pipeline or access to goods, and then the other two are wages and then other input costs. But this is something very important. I talked about this specifically, and Dill chimed in as well. But the cost of a 40-foot box of Shanghai to LA, 18 months ago was $2,000. Now it's 10,000. So it's demand. I mean, this is inflation in a completely different scale, but now we're going to see demand increasing, I don't know, tenfold based on that alone. And so some of the comments on here are kind of funny. Who knows if that's transitory, but nonetheless, I thought that was pretty important to talk about. We have been talking about it, and these are external factors. This isn't even like in-house or United States factors when we're talking about wage hikes and other costs associated with the market, but this is just imports alone. No other policy items here in our homeland. So something to keep an eye on as well. We got you back?
yeah,
Okay, cool.
my Discord is being extra sensitive today for some reason. And as a reminder, if you're here, you can donate or subscribe and or help the stream so we can upgrade our Discord so that things don't mess up all the time. But that's another topic. Yeah, I don't know exactly what you covered when I was gone, but kind of like where I left off is the big issue with this is it was shut down because one worker tested positive, and then they end up finding 40 other workers. So if they're saying this in one part of the port, then what says this can't happen in the other ports? The other parts of this port. And so, we're getting a lot of news about COVID, and that COVID, we're seeing the Delta variant ramp up around the world. And we're also seeing new variants come out. And so, in the best case scenario, I think more realistic scenarios, COVID's around for another year or two. Just imagine the continuous supply chain issues that we're going to have moving forward. And it's going to cause major disruptions, which is going to continue to bring up that PPI as Nate was showing, which is a big deal, which is eventually, if you know how supply chains work, producers push that cost on a consumer. So the higher PPIs go up, that's going to also elevate CPI, which elevates inflation. So inflation, the rate might be slowing down of how high it's increasing. The rate it goes from 3% to 5%, but it's still creeping up, which is not a good thing. And with COVID, it seems like it's going to continue to push issues on supply chains. And that's important because China is one of the biggest exporters in the world. And so that has extreme impacts on the US economy, that has extreme impacts on the European economy. And so these are things that we want to pay attention moving forward, because all these indicators are telling, we always talk about this every week. Red flags are showing, and we're seeing red flags pop up in
Red
terms of,
circles right here on the map. China.
yeah,
20% of our imports come from China.
yeah.
It's,
And this is only one of many countries that have already shown, about a month ago, the largest port in India shut down. So this is things we're seeing across multiple countries due to COVID. And there's another thing that I saw that in one of the other articles, it says, we don't expect, this is from the ocean shipping consultant for China, for BBC's Asian Business Report. He says, we don't expect to see new shipping capacities until 2 years down the road. So everything between now and 2 years will be dependent on the pandemic. So what they're saying is we already have a crazy backlog. We can't add more capacity, one because of COVID, but also because there's so much backlog already. So we're seeing demand, we're seeing record demands in the US. We'll bring this back to the US, the market that we invest in. We're seeing record growth in the US. We're seeing record demand, but we're seeing supply continue to have hiccups. So what that means is we're seeing PPI elevated, we're seeing inflation elevated, but we're seeing growth slow down. And I'll probably talk about this more in the future on another topic, but when you have elevated inflation and PPI and CPI numbers, but you have growth slowing, that creates stagflation, and stagflation is the worst case scenario for any economy. So these are things that we need to keep on our minds to see if it actually plays out or not. But I just wanted to bring up that story because that was a big thing in the news this week about the port, and we've been talking about it every week. We've been telling you guys every week. If you go on CNBC, they tell you something different, but we're telling you guys there's continuous supply chain issues due to everything that's happening at the ports, and it's not slowing down, and you need to remember that.
yeah. What he said.
But
Just pulling up some more graphs here as well. This is really wonky stuff. You can hit us up in Discord at any point in time. We have our Discord chat. Please join us. Many different topics are discussed, but we go in depth a little more further where we can banter back and forth on Discord. But further graphs, we can always post this stuff in the chat as well. Let us know if you'd like to. But yeah, as we were talking about imports, I think this is a really great graph and context here. Imports and goods, specifically China. I just pulled it up. 20% of it comes from them. You could look at these numbers. We're not probably going to hit these if supply chain issues keep occurring. 2.02% of our imports are video displays. Computers are 12%. Like all the things, and we already have a chip shortage. So smack that on top of this, FML. Like, how are we going to get around this? So motor vehicles, you just go down the list. Aircraft,
everything,
parts, like all of this stuff, backlog upon backlog, meaning maybe we're going to have to look somewhere else and deploy our capital or do some better import opportunities, because if this is not going to be, stable, what else are we going to do at this point in time? And we already saw the car grave we pulled up a couple weeks ago. Our Ford car grave. But ultimately that turns into some other things as well that I do want to discuss. And labor shortages, I don't know if you all saw this, but definitely this is on the top of my mind. Retail restaurant workers given the upper hand at this point. This came out on the 11th. But something just to point out, you got Denny's, right? The mobile relief dinner rolling out, or diner rather, is rolling out. It's not to feed people. It's actually to hire people. They're going out on the road to hire people. It's getting that dire. At this point, you have CVS, who has dropped the requirement for entry-level positions from having this here. So it's an UX bang. Chipotle Mexican Grill, they raised their wages. McDonald's, you got now, I think it's Walmart and Target are both paying for college. I believe there's a couple other retail folks who are looking at that. So, supply, demand, and then you tack on all of this other stuff as well when you're talking minimum wage, but then also the cost increase for food and everything else. So it's pretty interesting to be compiling all of this together and, quite frankly, compounding all of these issues. And so McDonald's announced an average of 10% higher wages. There's bonuses being paid, like, and they already have a very thin profit margin as it is. So their prices are going to have to go up. There's no other way other than to increase their prices to pay for this. And so inflation is going to occur. Yeah, you're looking at Target with their debt-free education. Somebody's got to pay for that. Guess who it is? Target.
Big Mac.
And Big Mac if McDonald's is going that route. But just very, very important stuff that people aren't considering. And I think Dylan and I have this premonition at times where we're talking about this stuff and the market isn't catching up in time. So we've been talking about this for weeks. And then finally it's been brought up about China more recently on Bloomberg and CNBC, where you got these bigwigs talking about it. And it's like, dude, it's been happening for the last month plus. And then the market responds accordingly because you got people talking about it on national TV. So yeah, I'm looking at some of that stuff as well. The car stocks and used cars as well aren't as hot in demand as they once were before. Just this last week, it's slowed down. So that's also something to be looking at. But another
prices.
Yeah, exactly.
Prices got too high.
Exactly. And another big one is going to be the earnings are coming out here. Big ones to be looking at: Walmart, Home Depot, all the retail. Target, who's just talking about paying for. I'm very curious to see whether they break earnings or not, and estimates how that's going to impact. And we talked a little bit about priced in on Hertz and stuff, but when it comes to Target, Ross, some of these folks who are importing also from China, like furniture and all these other goods. I don't know, man. What are you thinking? Do you think it's what's gonna happen? Because you're the wizard.
It's interesting. I mean, it's interesting because, like, what we're saying is producer price increases hitting record levels, the highest since 1980, and so you're assuming that these companies are pushing most of the price onto the consumer, right?
They're gonna have
and that's
to.
That's why we're seeing the CPI go up, because that's a consumer price index. So
exactly.
It flows that way. And so that's what's interesting, because I think there's so much demand and spending going on right now that I think a lot of these companies are still benefiting, like the Walmarts and the Targets, where people are shopping like crazy still, and it doesn't seem like it's slowing down yet.
Mm-hmm.
And so these are the, someone's still going to buy their ketchup every month. Someone's still buying their toilet paper every month. Those things are not changing. And so when I think it from that perspective, yeah, they're paying their employees more, but they're also making bigger margins, right? The companies that I'm more concerned about are the car companies. Some of the
talking
B2B
the dealers. Okay, got it. Yeah.
Yeah, some of the B2B business, because like a car dealership, they've already been passing the price on the consumer, where you have to pay above sticker price sometimes. But we're starting to see and we're seeing the same thing with the housing market, is consumers don't want to pay those prices anymore. Prices are getting so hot, and you need toilet paper. You need to buy a new bag of toilet paper once a month, but you don't necessarily need to buy a new car. And so, unless you really need a car, but you don't necessarily need a car as much as you need toilet paper every week. And so I think the Targets and the Walmarts are going to be hurt much less than some of the other, I was not cyclical, because car companies not really cyclical, but companies where they're raising prices and people can just stop purchasing. And so that's kind of the perspective I've been taking. I've been growing more weary in terms of companies that I'm looking at buying. Like, I think Walmart's going to smash earnings personally. I think Target, there's a high chance they're going to smash earnings too, because people are consumer staples, just like King's saying. These are things people have to buy all the time. And yeah, they're spending 10-20% more, but they have to buy it. And there's no, like, you can't buy, I mean, you buy another toilet paper, but it's still going up, you might buy one that's a little bit cheaper because the prices are going up, but you're still buying it.
Yeah.
And Walmart and Target are still benefiting.
Right. Yeah, it's interesting. King, anything your thoughts on this? If you have any, I'm very curious to hear your input as well. And as we're talking about it, I mean, we got Papi Biden coming in pretty hard as well with his infrastructure bill passing through. I'll pull that up, and then I'll talk some of the infrastructure stocks that I'm very interested in. In fact, I bought some. Once again, I post when I make big plays or what I think is our potential big plays, post them up in our Discord to let folks know. But very important stuff, because a lot of what's going to happen in the future is going to be based on Papi Biden and really his money coming through the pike. So, and then the flip side of that, really quick too, though, is this was on the news recently. I thought it was pretty interesting. I want your thoughts on this, because you had the FOMC kind of split on where they want to start going. The Federal Open Market Committee. You had some that were saying we're not there yet. You had some that said they're going to announce it in the fall, whether they're going to start tapering. And then you have some saying, let's just start it now. And so there's this wavering or maybe potentially debate internally trying to figure out, it's not the dove or hawk scenario. It's like, we don't know what the hell we're doing. Like, do we push, do we pull, do we provide, or do we not? Like, where do we go from here? And so I thought that was very interesting. In fact, I was watching it the morning they were doing that, because my kiddo wakes me up at 5 a.m. and he's my alarm clock. So I get Bloomberg bright and early in the morning. I get the market open. So this popped up, and I was like, holy crap. If the Fed doesn't know where we're headed, does anybody at this point?
Yeah.
And so, definitely, sorry, I think I clicked the wrong screen to blow this up, but do we know? Powell says we're not there yet, right? Like,
Yeah.
what, how much longer is he going to say that for? And so I'm just very curious. I mean, we keep bringing this up every week. I mean, any thoughts on this? King says we're slowly getting there.
I mean, who freaking knows? Like, I saw an article today that someone on the Fed was like, they need to start tapering next month, where Powell was like, we're not anywhere close. So I mean, the divide is one. Obviously, it's the political games that always happen. You have the red, you have the blue. Everyone has their perspective on how America should be run. But I think another part is people don't know what's going on. I think they're using tactics that would traditionally work, but we're seeing things that we've never had a COVID. So they're using tactics to help I would say the US continue to move forward and grow. But we're dealing with something we don't know how it's, people thought COVID vaccines was a solution, and then Delta variant came out of nowhere, and we're like, shoot, like, you can still get it if you got a COVID shot, so it's putting COVID as such a question mark that the Fed is using tactics to help the US grow, but they're seeing persistence in terms of, like we said, supply issues, growth is slowing, CPI and PPI are staying elevated. So I think there's a lot of, like, we don't know what to do, and that's why I think we're hearing a lot of perspectives, because nobody knows what's happening. Like, there's no solve, because COVID just keeps happening over and over again. It's like perpetual COVID that's causing all these issues, and not just the US, but the global economy. Like, it's not just impacting the US, like, everybody in the world is being impacted substantially from COVID, and it's worldwide supply issues.
Exactly.
It's not just the US.
So, yeah, what the Fed is going on, nobody knows.
Seriously.
So, going into infrastructure really quick, and then we have some shipping stocks as well that look like are popping up here as things are in fucking chaos. And so I really wanted to pull this up because this is the following bill, right? So there's two bills that are going through, the 1.2 trillion, and then there's a 3.5, the second play here. And it's a little different in terms of how they're going to do it. It's going to be reconciliation, which essentially means they're going to get it through simple majority. So instead of a 60-40 vote, it's a 51-49 vote, or 50-49. If it's tiebreaker, it'll pass because, it's Kamala Harris and it'll go. So 1.2 trillion. This is what I'm looking at right now. From now until probably the end of the month, some of the stocks that are around roads and bridges, we got railroads, power grid, broadband, all the infrastructure that he's been talking about, public transit, whatever. But all this other stuff, ports. I mean, we're just talking about ports. How can we start getting folks to for import export stuff? And then we got the 3.5 trillion coming through the pike as well. That's all going to be allocated accordingly per these committees. So. Definitely, I'm looking at a few different stocks in this, and one in particular, let me find it, sorry, is PAVE. It's PAVE, and it's an ETF, and it covers all the infrastructure stocks. Something that I've been looking at, low cost ratio, I think it's like 0.58%, which I don't really care about because I'm not going to hold it that long. 0.47, sorry. But they hold all of the industrials, metals, utilities, everything that's needed for the infrastructure bill to come through. So Nucor, Eaton, Deere, which is a tractor, they have all the equipment. Train, Emerson Electric, Vulcan Materials. In fact, VMC is one that I'm holding as well. I think they're going to be popping up. I'll pull that up in a quick minute. But you got United Rentals. So you have everything from steel, which is Nucor, to all the technologies that require the infrastructure to be built. And so this is a pretty good one for the price as well. You know, I like to look under stocks at under $20. 27, not that bad. I bought some cover or some calls on this through the last couple weeks, and I think it's a big play. It's a long hold for me, or what I would call a leap, long-term equity anticipation option, which is holding it for more than a year. And there's benefits to that as well that I could talk about if you guys would like. But definitely looking at this as one possibility. VMC, as I just mentioned before, pop that up here.
And I think it's a big deal too, right? Because if I remember correctly on the infrastructure bill, it's an 8-year plan, right?
Yeah.
So this is like infrastructure bill is not like something that's happening in the next 6 months. This is like was that a decade? Am I using the right terms? A decade-long plan to grow these parts of the U.S. Infrastructure, and so this is something that it's moved up pretty substantially, if you look at the charts, but it can go higher because so much money is going into these stocks and companies. So I agree, Nate. It's definitely something to keep on the radar, if not buy into in some capacity.
Yeah, VMC, definitely one that I'm looking at as well. That's Vulcan Materials. Sorry, I'm going to pull up the profile really quick so I can call out some items here. But this one, the materials, it supplies construction aggregate. So it's literally the infrastructure, cement, if you will, concrete, asphalt, the stuff that builds the roads and so forth. And so that's a pretty good one that I'm holding currently. And then VALE, that's one we've talked about in the past, and it's kind of made full circle. Because we discussed it, I don't know, months ago. But
we started talking about it at like $16 a share, I think, when we first started mentioning it.
Yeah, production, export of iron ore pellets. I mean, all the stuff that's going to be your steel and metals to build, everything else other than the roads. So this is another one that's actually in the ETF as well, I believe. But I mean, you look at the chart; it's just skyrocketing. King, maybe this is a good chart you could practice on as well to see where the support and resistance is at.
And two really important things to know about VALE too is if you do want to hold on to it, it's a 8% dividend, which is really high. You don't get many 8% dividends of a company that's showing a lot of strength. And then second is it has a PE ratio of 6. So it's not expensive at all. A lot of the companies that have already been moving, some of these infrastructure plays or material plays are already trading at maybe a 10, 15, 20, 30 PE ratio. And this is a 6 PE ratio. It's still really low. And so it's a large company, nice dividend and low value or low PE valuation. So definitely something to keep on the radar.
Price to the earnings. But that's kind of where I'm at. I'm looking at, I've bought some up. Definitely looking towards the bill. In fact, I got ahead of the curve a little bit a couple mornings ago and made a nice 100% profit on a couple of these on some call options. So, but very curious to hear what you all think. This is very important for myself. I know Dylan's very interested in this bill, but I think there's a lot of opportunities for growth in different sectors because of this bill as well. There's gonna be many different ramifications of this, and then as we were talking about, there's gonna be some inelasticity, meaning folks are gonna start looking to buy similar products, maybe cheaper. Maybe if an apple's too expensive, they'll go for an orange, kind of thing. And so, very important to keep pace with what's going on in terms of supply and demand. Next week, I'm sure something will come up this following week. So by the time we stream, there's going to be a bunch of other stuff. So, price for which one, Jake? Sorry. Oh, Vale, I assume is what you're talking about. We're just saying
VALE,
price.
PAVE, and VMC were the three Nate mentioned.
Yeah, I think Vale. We were just saying the price of earnings on it was pretty good relative to the other stocks at
Yeah,
this
and a
point.
high
So I don't know if
dividend.
there's and high dividend. And so I mean it's working its way back down. I mean if you draw an imaginary line, you can kind of see the support line there, starting to bounce off. So we'll see what happens. And what I do like, all the stocks that I've talked about, in particular, institutional ownership is relatively high. There's been more buying than selling in these stocks as well. And a lot of the folks who are holding these are BlackRock comes up numerous times, Vanguard comes up numerous times in the top 10 on all the stocks as well. So there's some massive backing from institutional buying as well. And financials, everybody's looking pretty good, pretty solid overall. So
Yeah.
as Dylan said, price to earnings, specifically on Vale, is pretty darn good
Yeah.
relative, considering all other things equal.
And they had earnings last month. They beat earnings by this is $110 billion company, and they beat revenue by 117%. And they
Wow.
beat net income by 650%. So because of all the raw material prices going up, they're
Yeah.
making really substantial revenue. But even more important is net income, because even if prices do come down a little bit, their balance sheet is so healthy because they're having so much free cash
Mm-hmm.
because of the prices increasing substantially. So even if there's up and downs in the raw prices, um, they have a ton of money and a really good balance sheet. Um, so that's something to look at. Another stock I want to mention is AA.
Yep.
It's a pretty big company as well. What's it called? Here it is.
Alcoa
It's
Core. Yeah.
Alcoa. So the reason I bring them up is I was reading an article today that aluminum, because of both I think aluminum's used in the electric cars or the car industry,
Mm-hmm.
as well as obviously consumers as well, like aluminum cans and things. They're expecting there to be um, a shortage of aluminum through 2026. So they're expecting
Mm.
5 more years of a shortage for aluminum. And so companies like Alcoa, which are purely aluminum, I think they're already up like 200% in the last year.
Yeah. They're
But
yeah.
this is a company to still put on your radar because of the pronounced shortage that they're expecting over the next 4 years in aluminum. And so this is something to put on your radar. Obviously, it's since the middle of July, it's already moved up, $15 a share, but this is definitely something to put on your radar if you do see any decent pullbacks, because
Wow.
they're
They got
expecting there,
1.61 billion cash on hand too.
yeah, yeah,
It's pretty
aluminum is a
nice.
funny word. But yeah,
Good
this is another
aluminum.
one that you might want to put on your watch list. And then I found a really good article. I'll post it in the chat of shipping companies, and I really wanted to bring this up because I talked about
Is this the Investopedia article?
yeah, I'll
Yeah.
put it in the
Gotcha.
chat
Okay.
because I mentioned it when I talked about the port shutting down and stuff, and so the port shutting down is a bad thing for the overall economy, but it's really good for shipping companies because the costs are skyrocketing, and that's costs for businesses. Yes, the costs go up for them too, but they're pushing all that cost onto the businesses. And so, one of the articles we talked about this, I think last week or the week before, but shipping containers costs um, have gone up. Let me see if I can find where's that article. They've gone up 500% in the last year. So freight costs from China to the US rose to a record 20K for a 40-foot box. 500% increase in the last year. So companies are paying hand over fist to get goods shipped from China to the US, which is
Hmm.
extremely good for shipping companies. So I'm looking at companies that are shipping between the US and China, and that's why I put that list in the chat so you guys can look in there, find the companies that kind of are filling that gap due to the increased cost. And as we've been saying,
Yeah.
this supply issue in this in the docks is not going anywhere, which means these companies can easily have elevated profits for say the next year to two. Based on what we're seeing, and people are saying that we'll have issues for up to the next 2 years in ports and
Hmm.
shipping. And so, it's a pretty long list there, and it's broken up by different tiers in terms of sizes of companies, and it even breaks down where some of the companies are located and what they do. And
Hmm.
so I'm specifically looking, I won't post it in Discord when I find some companies I'm looking at more specifically, but I'm looking for some companies that are shipping between the US and China because costs have gone up really
Hmm.
significantly, and that's going to benefit these companies.
Yeah, somebody's gonna hop in the game. That's capitalism 101 for you. So
Yep.
yeah, I'd be curious to see. And I have some specifically Vale because I bought some call options and just give everybody a heads up. I mean, strike price right now it's at $20, 2064. This is my thing right here. This is a long term play too. So we talked. This is an 8-year infrastructure bill plan that we're looking at. So money comes in, but it takes years for this stuff to be built out. So 2023, that gives you plenty of time to either execute or exercise the option between now and then. Excuse me, I'm looking at strike price 22. That's in the money as of right now, but go out. I mean 25. I think it could easily hit 30 in a year and a half, right? At $62. I wouldn't say a share, but for an option contract, that's not bad. That's 100 shares. Volume, you're looking at 73. A lot of people are picking this up. 62 more contracts opened as of Friday. Implied volatility, it's not. It's a little far out to consider that. But and then the delta is the shift for every dollar it shifts. So from $30 to $31, it would raise your option 17 cents, 18 cents at this point. So that will probably shift dramatically the closer you get to exercising the option date or expiration date of the option. So I think there's multiple plays here. Get in while you still can, but I'm not selling. I'm not a institutional
Financial
investor
advisor.
or
Financial
financial
advisor.
advisor. So I am saying just be wary, of course, but pay attention. There's some pretty prime opportunities happen here, and I think I'll dive into this a little more and post some stuff and analysis in Discord like we've been doing last couple days, trying to figure out
And
where there's opportunity.
something to quickly call out about Veil 2 is right now the charts, I always do the technical stuff. I'll post this in Discord as well, but when Nate posts something about the options, but as long as this holds above 20, we're in a bull flag right now, which means if we complete this bull flag and stay above 20, then this stock is easily heading up another $4 to $5 over the coming months, as long as we stay above 20. So based on what Nate's saying is you can find a good call option here. You know, this stock could easily go up $4 to $5. And when you zoom out on the charts, like back in 2008, 2009, this stock was up at $40 a share. And we're for sure seeing higher prices in this industry than we did back then. And so there's no reason this could be higher. And if we hold that 20, then we'll complete a bull flag, and this can definitely go up easily $3 or $4 in the short term.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, good point. Good point. I like it. So, anybody have questions about anything we covered? Please let us know. We'll post this up on YouTube as well. Be sure to check out our channel. Also, Dill's got his channel where he does more technical analysis on stocks throughout the week, which is also very important. And then ping us on Discord. We have a phenomenal computer community that we
We do
built
have
out on
those.
the computer. But there's a shortage of computers right now, so I don't know if I could say that word. But yeah, in Discord, definitely we have a phenomenal community supporting each other. So please check us out there. Stock Talk Game. Thank you all for tuning in tonight. Was there anything else we missed we need to cover?
Nah, I think that's it. Thanks everyone who coming by on the live stream on the Twitch. So appreciate you guys. You know who you are, King, Jake, all the OGs, the real
All
ones.
our usual suspects out there. You
Yeah,
know
and
who you are.
if you're watching this back on YouTube, please leave some comments. So because we really want to know what you guys think about these topics and any stocks you're looking at. But I think that's a great place to end it. And if you don't know, this is where we play.
And you win.
Bam, son.
Oh, thank you. Sorry, I totally forgot. Got to get that reggaeton horn up in here. Salve.
Reggaeton.
Nos vemos. Thank you all.
But yeah, we're just gonna get to a little bit more gaming, just end the night, just have some fun with you guys, chill out. Are you gonna
Keep
jump
talking
stay
stocks.
on some?
Yeah, I'll be on.
Yeah, we can still talk about stocks.
King recognizes the horn.
We're just done with the official part.
The official stream part. But let's keep talking stocks. We're gonna game, kind of make fun, do what